Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For the Record, Season 6, and I have one of my maybe most anticipated guests I've ever had on the pod here with us today in Dallas, fresh off a plane. If you've ever thought about luxury or brand positioning or attracting affluent clientele or really being the boss of your brand, this guy knows all the things. He is a genius. We'll use the word genius when it comes to when it comes to brand strategy. Since 2016, he's really taken a hold in the market to teach us all, including surgeons, aesthetic practices, brands all around the world, how to be an affluent brand, how to really position yourself as a luxury brand and a destination. He has written 2 books about this topic. He speaks all over the country, all over the world talking about this. He is the managing director of Aesthetic Altitude, his company that's focused on teaching you how to do this as well with a referral-only client base because he is that hard to get into. He has a website that is full, literally chocked full of incredible resources, and his Instagram is a treasure trove. And, fun fact, he goes after me at AmSpa this year, and I'm like, could there be anybody more awesome to follow me on stage and make me look like a little bitty nobody? And it had to be Adam Haroun. So he's with us today to do it again on the podcast here in Dallas in the flesh. Welcome our lovely guest, Mr. Adam Haroun. Welcome to the podcast.
So good to be here, Tiffany.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. We're going to have a blast today. I'm so excited.
If you guys are not watching, you should turn on your YouTube or Spotify Premium to see what he's wearing. As always, he has amazing glasses.
Of course.
His little sweater looking like a snack, as usual.
Tried my best. Love it.
When I think, Adam, looking at just your own story, you've made yourself a luxury brand. I knew you before I ever knew you because I knew that you were this like bigger than life character that spoke about luxury brands, that you've been everywhere. All the vendors wanted you. And then I meet you in person, and you are that, by the way, but you had already positioned yourself really in the digital world as that. So you're a perfect case study of what you've already built. So give us an idea of kind of where you come from, how you got here.
Amazing. So, how I actually got started in the med spa world is I started off as a patient all those years ago in the early 2010s. I'm a marketer by trade, obviously. Prior to working in aesthetics, I'd worked in financial services, a lot of, asset managers, things of that nature. And that's where I'd learned, what a luxury brand is all about, how you market to the affluent, all these different things. I was looking a little worse for the wear. I was looking for my under eye filler when I was like 25, and I was like, oh my gosh, like these clinics have terrible marketing. I can help these people. So, got our first med spa client in 2015. I was like, oh, this industry is really fun. So, started learning everything I could, going to conferences, meeting with practice owners. Client by client, people loved what we were doing. It grew. Industry started taking notice, started building some like corporate partnerships, and here we are, better part of a decade later.
Which is so funny because you look like you're about 25 right now.
I'm in the right industry.
I'm like, how could you have started that long ago? Because you look like you're barely old enough to like drink alcohol. It's shocking how good you look. But I think what you have done that is really impressive for me is the education for the market at no cost to any of us. You put out content, I feel like every day. You've got so many resources. You've really leaned into this idea that you've made yourself an asset for all of us. And so I think, number one, before we even go into luxury branding and positioning,
totally.
That is such a lesson for everyone that you get people you want when you offer the value that they need. And I think you've done that so beautifully with our industry.
Absolutely. Just by the sheer fact that, I think my goal more than anything, I want to grow my business and get clients, and that's all great. But I want to raise standards, right? When I see these billboards with these rock bottom prices, or, I feel like it's every quarter, if not every month, you hear these news articles about someone who got botched or much worse at a practice. I'm like, our industry needs to just step up, right? We are selling medical services at a premium, and people need to understand that not only this is medicine, but also the fact that, they should be looking for the best provider, not the lowest price provider. And so if I can get my knowledge out there and share that with as many practices as I can, I've done my good deed in the world that day. So there you go.
Well, and I think the idea of
really an affluent clientele. So I worked for Dillard's. Many of you who are listening probably know that. And I taught a whole class on luxury language.
Love it.
And we would talk about the Kleenex is called a beauty puff. Like, don't say Kleenex. It's so derogatory. You say beauty puff. Like, every word had something else. It was like a translated version of that because the client in the chair came to Dillard's wanting to feel special.
Love that.
Wanting to feel like a VIP, wanting to feel different than if she went to like the Sephora counter. And there's something about the psychology of that they're more inclined to buy because they want to keep that feeling going and bring it home with them.
Yep.
So I think as you look at a med spa or surgery office, anybody in our world, and you kind of dissect what's going wrong today and how we're not there, give us an idea of like the things that in your gut you're just like, oh, if we could just stop doing that, we'd be better off, as an industry.
Okay, so oh my gosh, this could be like a 3-hour anthology. Okay, so first thing is, I see practice using all these brand destroying words, free, discount, right? Like that's what like Spirit Airlines uses. No offense to any Spirit fans watching the podcast, but like free, discount. These are words that just make patients think, what's the lowest price I can get out of this practice, right? Like when you go to a luxury hotel, that chilled bottle of water is complimentary, right? Mercedes-Benz has, sales events all the time, but they're never going to use the word discount, right? In the right situation, they're extending preferred pricing or incentives, right? Small hinges swing big doors in marketing, right? So sometimes just a little change in how you're talking about your brand, what your practice offers, how you convey things to patients makes a world of difference in how you're perceived. So some of those small lexicon changes make a world difference. Can I say one that's like very controversial?
Give it to us.
Oh, you're all going to like come out with knives for me, but hear me out. I don't love the word med spa, and I'm going to tell you why. I think med spa to me is like a nail salon with like some random machine in the back they got off like, I don't know, like a cereal box or something, right? This is medical aesthetics. This is medicine, right? And I want all of you to really think of your practices on that level, not just being medi spa or med spa. To me, there is so much opportunity beyond just being that and truly seeing yourself as a purveyor of aesthetic medicine at the highest level.
I love that you said that because we internally call it med spa all the time because we're doing B2B sales, and I think we just sort of adopt that vernacular here. In SEO, unfortunately, you have to have that word, which is tragic. But I had George Baxter-Holder on, who I'm sure you know, and he was like, no, Tiffany, we are medical aesthetic clinics. I agree with you. When I write like any sort of prose, as many of you know, I like to write long things, I always say medical aesthetic clinic because it does encompass dermatology, who's focusing on aesthetics. It encompasses a surgeon, the med spa world. I think the term, it's almost like when we used to say mid-level. Mid-level is like such a dirty word.
I'm like, oh, no one wants that. Like, you know what I mean?
I'm not mid. I'm top tier, baby. I'm not mid-level.
Absolutely.
Like, I think people fought back with that. I think the med spa world, if we can get ChatGPT and all the Google algorithms to agree with us, I think you're dead on. It's got to be a medical aesthetic clinic. Med spa does not sound very esteemed or very professional, frankly, in the medical world. So how do we stop using that? How do we get people to, whether it's SEO, branding, et cetera, what's like the first step in even starting to change how you brand your practice?
Okay, so I'm just full of the controversial takes today. Another one to me is get outside of our industry. Like when I talk to a practice and they bring me like, oh, here's 4 brands of practices I really admire. Nope, start from the square one. I always say if you're looking to build your practice's brand, get inspiration from other brands that your patients admire or the patients you aspire to serve really admire. Maybe that is a luxury hospitality brand. Maybe that is a luxury jewelry brand. Maybe that's something in luxury automotive, right? But if you are only looking in our industry and giving yourself that tunnel vision of, oh, we got to use these colors and these types of fonts and that imagery, you're going to look the same, right? And, it's that whole idea of if you don't stand out, no one's going to notice you. So start looking outside of our industry. You're doing this every day when you go to the mall, when you shop online, you're seeing brands you admire. Take notes. Think of it more like a marketer when you're shopping, right? That's probably how I justify my shopping habit. But in any case, I'm doing market research, right? Look for brands outside of our industry. Draw inspiration from those. That's how you're going to create what I call a pattern interrupt. You're going to look different. Your brand is going to sound different. People are going to notice it differently than when they see a million practices and no offense to anyone listening, but like the lotus flower logo or the face logo or the body logo or like the leaf logo. If you're a wellness oriented practice, it's been done. You deserve better than that for your practice, right? So start getting inspiration from outside of our industry. I'd say that's where I'd really encourage practices to begin.
I couldn't agree more. Even here, we're software. So we're software meets beauty meets all the things here.
I love it.
And we have to do that all the time because we don't fit anywhere. There's no box we fit in, which I think is a blessing because we don't get sort of sucked into like how Slack markets themselves or how Adobe or whoever else. We're forced to look outside the industry. I think so many practices, they get sort of stuck in the names people are going to recognize, and they put their name on the door, which, by the way, I hate that. Everyone knows that. You cannot scale your name on the door. There's only one of you. I think there are so many things that are nuanced just in how you name your practice. That's probably its own whole podcast, and also how you use your URL for that, and how can you extend your brand beyond that. But I love what you said about it starts with like, be different. If you walk into Louis Vuitton, it feels different than walking into Nordstrom's. Even Neiman. Neiman's a higher end store,
Absolutely.
but Neiman and Gucci do not feel the same. You immediately know you're somewhere that is high end, and they're coming up to you with their little bottle of water. They're asking about your needs. It's a different experience. So how does actual in practice differ when you look at a practice that's maybe not doing this so well and you walk in the front door? How should it feel? What do I do to think about my actual physical environment?
So I would say, people think, oh, the patient journey starts when they walk through the doors of the practice. But the reality is that patient's journey started much earlier on. And the touch points they've engaged with were much earlier on. Maybe they're, getting past a referral card from a friend if you're doing a referral program. Maybe they came across your website first. Maybe they saw a billboard or a mall ad you did if you're doing that to promote your practice, right? But think back to that first touch point or series of touch points and build from there. We do this with our clients all the time, and we find there's in the neighborhood of like 120 touch points and patient engage with, from the name tags your staff have on all the way through to what does your, hold sound like when someone's holding on the phone, which hopefully they're not, but if they are, what does that sound like, right? All those different things patients engage with, because how I define a brand, it is the sum of how patients see, perceive, and experience your practice. So it's not just your logo. It's not just the name of your practice. It's not just your patient outcomes. Those are all elements of it, but it really is every engagement a patient has with your practice, online, offline, everywhere in between. So that was a bit of a ramble, but does that answer that question for you?
Yeah, and I think it brings up another point for me that this has become more prevalent, I think, in recent years, is it doesn't match. So I go online and you look like a fabulous medical aesthetic clinic. You've got all the things. You've got an amazing web guy, a good UI designer. So your website it's on point. But then I walk in the front door and I'm like, what shithole did I land in?
Absolutely.
Where am I?
Oh, yeah.
I think there's such a risk of the disconnect, because you mentioned referrals a lot when you talk. I think that's very, very important, but make them proud to refer you.
Yep.
If they're not proud of what they're walking into, they're not going to share it with their friends who are looking at them, judging them anyway, because we all judge. Hello, welcome to the world. They want to be able to say, oh, my friend Adam, amazing location, everything about him is amazing, go there. And know for sure that that's going to be the experience that their friends are going to get. So when it doesn't match, I think that is such a brand. It's, to me, the most critical thing you have to do is make the match.
Yeah. I totally agree. So there's like 3 C's to a really strong brand, right? The first is consistency, right? And we look at that from 2 ways. To your point, Tiffany, consistency of brand visuals. Does your website look like the inside of your practice, look like your business cards, look like your social media? Consistency of visuals. In addition to that, consistency of experience, right? If someone comes in 2 p.m. on a Tuesday and, Jenny is their front desk associate, or they come in at 11 on a Sunday and Josie is their front desk associate, is that experience consistent, right? So often you'll see practices with like half their reviews are like, oh my gosh, best money ever spent. I love this place. Their staff are angels. Then half the reviews are like, this place was just hell on earth, right? And that to me is a practice with a major consistency problem somewhere along the way. So consistency is one of the big parts of a strong brand. Second one is going to be clarity. Do people know what you do and what makes you different? Like when I see a practice, this is ever, but especially on Instagram, like Tuesday they're talking about, oh, we do this fat freezing thing. And then like Wednesday they're talking about lashes. And then like the next day, like, oh, we have this energy healer who comes in twice a month. I'm like, what does this place do well, right? Like I'm not saying you can't have a wide menu of services. In fact, in many cases you should, but you don't need to give all those services equal airtime in your marketing. It is going to confuse the living daylights out of your patients, and confused minds don't buy. So clarity is the second one. And then third is really just constancy, right? Most practices think, and I'm sure you run into this all the time, Instagram, that's my marketing plan, right? Instagram is a wonderful marketing channel. I love Instagram. That's probably how we found each other, right? Instagram's great, don't get me wrong. But that is not a marketing plan, right? The most dangerous number in marketing is one type of patient, one way of getting new clients, one type of service you offer, right? So consistency of experience and of visuals, clarity that people know what you do, what makes you different, and then again, constancy. If you can master those 3 things, you'll be well on your way to having a much higher end brand.
I love that you said don't market all of it, because some things are not very sexy. I don't want to hear, like if you do skin tag removal, I don't want to know that on Instagram. Like that's not sexy. That doesn't make me feel luxury. I don't want to come in, and it's great that you do it. And if I come to you already, I'll be more likely to ask for that if I need it, but it's not a big pull for your audience. Yeah. And I see some things I'm like, they marketed that. They spent time making a post, making captions, doing a whole reel for a thing that no one really cares about, that they would get anyway if the patient who had that need came into the practice for something else that was, more, I shouldn't say sexy, but that's the word I'm going to use.
Yeah.
I just think you have to kind of know what things are compelling, and you need to pander to your audience. I think as a brand, no matter how much you don't want to do it, you have to pander to your audience. So if you want affluent people, you got to be an affluent marketer. If you want people who are run of the mill, you can be run of the mill, but you got to pander to who you want.
Well, that touches on something else. Patients or practices, pardon me, are like all the time, Adam, what color? I like pink. Can we use pink in the logo? What color do your patients like? I mean, obviously the brand has to reflect you, but who is your clientele, right? If you have a brand that's aligned with you but not your patients, it's never going to resonate, right? So know who your audience is. Again, know what brands they admire. What do those visuals look like? Start drawing inspiration there. It all goes back to knowing your clientele and, to your point, pandering to them.
I love the word pandering because it sounds so bad, like we're politicians.
I think like politicians, but it could be a good thing
but
too,
we
right?
are politicians. I mean, and I think we have a clinic here. I'm good friends with the owner in Dallas, and all her clientele are like crazy rich and affluent. She doesn't do much marketing at all, like none. But because she's positioned herself as like, these are the prices that you're going to pay. We don't do any discounts. She has great outcomes. Her clinic is absolutely beautiful and stunning. And she got in with the right group, who then has another group and another group, and this like ripple effect. And people who are rich are friends of people who are rich.
Absolutely.
It's like now this great trickle down effect. But she also walks the walk. She looks like them. She talks like them. Her practice smells like them. Everything about what she has built is that patient. So when they walk in, it's like, oh, it's like going to the tennis club. It's no different. Like everything just feels like it's their normal life.
Yeah.
They're not taking a step down or a step out to come to see her. And I think there's a part of that where if you have to change who you are to go to see your provider, or your expectations, how you're treated, you have to like be okay with things that maybe you aren't okay with because it's just where you got to go. It does not promote loyalty and retention long term. It just doesn't.
And kind of to that point, I always say there's like no such thing as a neutral interaction with your brand, right? Everything is either building your brand or detracting from it. Even if it's on a micro level, it is either building your brand or detracting from it, right? So always keep that in mind. And to your point, is it somewhere your patients feel comfortable referring? Is it somewhere that your patients feel comfortable hanging out? How can we tap into that? So totally agree with that.
And your Instagram is just, again, so full of so many great tips. I am a big believer in getting out of the practice. And I used to do this lecture for Galderma about wherever she goes, you go. So if she's a mom with a kid in private school, she drives a Yukon, she goes to tennis club, she's got whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Then go find wherever those people live. Like wherever they are, go to tennis club, go to the private school and sponsor a football event. Whatever you have to do to get in front of her, because she has friends who are like her, just go find her and be there. And everyone's pushback is like, oh, I don't want to do events. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. But you'll spend $10,000 a month on Google ads to get whatever Tom, Dick, or Harry clicks on the ad.
Coming in for the free AC, who's not even the right person for this practice,
not even
right?
good for you. But how do you help people to understand, or how do you help them to get a strategy or a plan to do? I call it like this guerrilla warfare, right?
Yeah.
It's on boots on the street kind of marketing versus just spending your way into trying to build a business.
Yeah. So if I could summarize my whole approach to marketing and accessing higher net worth patients in 8 words. Talk to people and do more of what works. That's the reality of it, right? The affluent do business based on relationship and referral. So why would we, go do all these things? I'm not saying don't do online marketing. It's great. But what I am saying is don't neglect, the people that are literally 50 feet away from you, right? Where else are these people doing business with? Who do they do business with? What brands do they admire? Maybe it's something, I always like to say, I love a good high-end real estate broker, right? Maybe when they close on a property on, a luxury neighborhood near you, you give them a gift voucher that new person in town can use for your practice. Super simple. Maybe you sponsor a Pilates class at the local high-end Pilates studio. Simple, right? I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million more. It is so much easier to access upskill patients than you think. People make it this big, convoluted thing that you got to run all these crazy funnels and all this stuff. And that's great. I'm not saying don't do it, but also don't just neglect stepping 5 doors down in your plaza that your practice is located in.
And because people don't typically market to them. I think Pilates,
totally.
Sponsor the juices after,
Absolutely.
It can be very small things, but the special touch of it feels luxurious and it feels intentional. And when you have money, not that I do, because trust me, I don't, but I've got friends that do. When you have money, people forget about you because they think that you have all the things that you need already. They don't even, it's like when you're really hot, no one wants to date you, right? Because you can't get a boyfriend because you're super hot. I think it's the same kind of phenomenon that when you are at a certain level, people forget that you also need to be touched. You need to be, I think, much more personal, to your point, but it sounds different, it feels different. It doesn't, the shotgun approach that we do with Google marketing, Instagram ads, it doesn't really work for the high net worth individual because they're used to someone coming to them with whatever it is that they have to offer and talking to them like a human, like one-on-one.
Exactly. They do business by relationship and referral. And so you can think of any of the higher ticket purchases you made, odds are that was a business or a service that was referred to you, or you had a relationship with them already, right? You probably, didn't find your realtor off some random Google search. Maybe you did, but most likely it was by referral, right? And again, everything has a place, right? People think Adam hates Google ads and Adam hates social. No, I don't. Not at all. But what I am saying is We know in marketing, depending what data point you choose to reference, it takes between 7 and 25 exposures to your brand for someone to actually take action. So if you're only relying on word of mouth to get there, it's going to take forever. If you're only relying on Google Ads to get you there, it's going to take forever. If you're only relying, like so many practices, on Instagram to get you there, it's going to take forever, right? So you need to do all these things in tandem to make sure that you get to those exposures the most quickly. And again, you're in proximity to the patients you want. So it really is a matter of both, not an either or.
Well, I think about things like Carvana, right? It's an amazing service, but you can't buy a Ferrari on Carvana.
No, ma'am.
Like, you can buy a really nice mid-tier car, which is great for that person. But if I want to get a Ferrari, a Bentley, a Rolls, whatever I want to get that's high end, I got to go see my guy to get those cars. So I think if anything, Adam, not even saying that you have to be luxury or premium. I'm not saying that that's like the only way to go, but know your positioning. Whatever it is that you choose to be, you've got to really be that thing, and you've got to market to that audience. So if your audience is living on Carvana, then maybe Instagram, Google, more digital things are great because they want to be self-service, do the things. But if they're looking at, their local Rolls-Royce dealership, they probably want to be talked to, touched, sent a little card in the mail with a thank you, a little flower the next day after their big treatment to say,
Absolutely.
hope you're healing well after your full face correction. I think it's the small touches that audience just craves. But let's say that we have not done that quite yet. We're not quite there. How do you get into the mind of a practice owner to say, if you want to make this shift, we have to shift your staff, who you hire, how you train them, what your chairs look like that your patients are sitting in. How do they even start to uncover where they're going wrong and to really dive into changing this mentality?
Yeah, so one of the first places you can begin to do that very easily is take a long, hard look at your reviews, right? If you look at negative reviews, sometimes they will be about the clinical side of the practice. Whatever, there's people out there who do that. But a lot of the times, a lot of practices' negative reviews, they're about the experience. I had to wait. Their powder room was dirty, right? Oh, their staff were, gossiping at the front desk, right? So take a good long look at like your not so great reviews and see where your experience is the most lacking. I would start there. And then it doesn't have to be an overnight thing, and that's not going to be feasible for a lot of practice. But where can we start elevating things the most quickly? I say like fastest path to cash, fastest path to better patients. What are those things you can make a big difference with without breaking the bank that can really begin to attract a higher caliber of patient? Start there. Maybe it's redoing your reception area. That might be really, really costly. Maybe it's just adding on a really high-end service where you're combining modalities. Start there, right? But start with somewhere that's, feasible for you, that's going to be actually something you can do within the next, say, 30, 60 days to implement, and then from there, grow on that, right? Don't think you're going to do all of your practice touch points at once. That would be crazy.
Well, we would do that here. We'd be like, let's do all of it today and start.
Yeah, all the things.
But, I think expensive is a relative term. If you look at what people are spending on Google ads, Instagram ads, even billboards and things that we don't even know if they convert, we can't really track them. If you took that and translated it into a fresh coat of paint, maybe a nice little Wayfair furniture piece with a nice little pillow that's chopped down the middle like a little karate chop. You add some little tchotchkes here and there. You change the lighting, the light bulb. The lumens make a big difference in a practice.
Totally.
I think you could take that saying, let's say it's a $5,000 investment you're making per month, and translate it into some small things around your practice, and it could feel much different in a day than your Google ads can give you in a week or a month.
Remember those like trading spaces like home decor stores from the 90s? It really is like that, right? Like it's just those little things, and a lot of them can make a big difference to how you're perceived, right?
Just don't use shiplap, whatever you do. No Joanna Gaines.
There you go.
That's my PSA. Don't use any shiplap. That's a big thing here in Texas.
I just learned to with decor. I love that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something that I just forgot what it was, but it's really good.
Oh man.
It'll come back to me, don't you worry. One thing I was also going to say is, people think, when I'm marketing to the upscale patient, it's people with the Bugattis and the private jets and the vacation homes in St. Tropez. And that is a segment of the high net worth population. But we know, and there's new data out there from MasterCard that came out earlier this year, Affluent begins at households that make about $358,000 household income per year. That's people within 10 minutes of where you're living right now, most likely, right? And quite frankly, those ultra high net worth patients, they kind of act like your Groupon shoppers. They're a bit of a mess. Never happy, expect a deal, right? First to go to Google and say something negative, right? So I'm not saying you have to go market to the ultra high net worth patient. A lot of the times it's actually not something I recommend. Really think of those, some people call them the, mass affluent, other people call them the Henrys, which is an acronym for high earner, not rich yet. But really those more accessible affluent individuals in your community. They're loyal. They are more than happy to refer. They follow proper post care, and they might not have the private jets and the butlers and all that stuff just yet, but they spend like they do, right? So
I think you make a really good point that there's this in-between group that's affluent, and there's also people who are very, very affluent, very wealthy, who you would never know that are wealthy. They do go to Groupon. We have med spas here related to our company, and some of our biggest spenders and most successful people are Groupon referrals that have come in from Groupon, and they're like a CEO of like some giant company, but they're rich because they're smart. They're rich because they save on things that don't require them to spend more than they have to spend. I mean, look at Warren Buffett. The guy's like so cheap.
Doesn't he drive a car from like the 90s?
Yeah, his kids get no inheritance. Like,
yeah.
But it's very unassuming. So I think part of the risk for practice, this I learned early on in my retail career, is to never judge a book by its cover. And the person that walks in who does not look like your patient base, if you've been doing these things, has found you because they are probably in that base, and they may have a ton of money to spend. So I think teaching your staff how to shop out of the right wallet, not their own, and not even really the patient's in some cases. You don't know what the wallet looks like, but also the whole not judge a book by its cover, make the experience amazing for everyone, because even if that patient is not the right fit for you, they've got a voice, potentially an Instagram following, potentially friends in the community. If they feel like they've been treated differently for any sort of reason, that's also a brand detractor, to your point. I think the risk is greater there. You've got to teach your staff to be really omnipresent in the practice, be like Mr. Dietz, be everywhere for everyone, and treat everyone as if they belong, even if you don't know if they do or not, because you've spent so much time trying to get in a certain clientele. I think there's just a really nice pendulum that swings there. You've got to be very cautious to kind of keep it in the middle.
I'll tell you where I learned that same lesson. When I was like back in school, I was a bank teller. That was not my calling in this life. But in any case, I learned, like, you'd see people, dressed to the nines and like, oh, I was looking so good when they ran the card through, right? Then you'd see people that were the most, simple looking folks you'd ever come across, and like, oh my gosh, like, why aren't you talking to our, investment team, right? So I learned that really, really early on. I like to say, don't spend people's money for them, right? You don't know when someone's looking to investment procedures that day. If you're spending people's money for them I see this one a lot. People don't suggest a full treatment plan or don't suggest multimodality things. They're like, oh, I don't think they're in the budget for that day. You've just judged them, right? That's the most judgmental thing you could do. So educate your patients about everything you can do, everything that would help them get to where they want to be. We're not forcing anyone to take advantage of anything. We're just giving them options, educating them, and inspiring possibilities, right? And then, based on what they want to do, they'll make the appropriate next step, right? But you never know who that next top spending patient's going to be, and often it's not who you think it's going to be. So I couldn't agree more.
And if you don't give them all the options and they go somewhere else and they do give them all the options, all of a sudden you look as if you're either incompetent, like you can't do it, you don't have the skill set, you don't offer those treatments. I think the risk of that is like, if I don't tell you all the things that you could be a candidate for, I'm risking the fact that you'll go somewhere else and hear like, that girl did not even tell me I had this wrinkle that she could have fixed, or I didn't know I could do a liquid rhinoplasty, or whatever the things are that I actually do, but I thought, oh, he doesn't have enough money, or I don't know if it's just so expensive. I think that as a medical professional, I believe this in the heart of who I am. If you're a medical professional and someone has cancer, you give them all the options.
Totally.
This is obviously not cancer, but the same idea that if I have, a cardiac concern, a liver concern, I'm going to get whatever my options are from my physician. This is the same. If I have a medical aesthetic concern, I want to know what are the options for me. I think we owe that to people in a medical world to give them the medical solution for their problem. And I think it's not selling. People get really freaked out, as you know, about selling. It's education, obviously, but it's also, I'm a provider with a solution, and you've got a problem. Like, it's this like idea that we're a perfect match. I've got it, and you want it.
They contacted you. Like, they reached out for a reason. They clearly want something you've got. Like,
you didn't kidnap them. But so the consultation, I think that's also where sort of this luxury and affluent sort of luxury brand halo comes into play.
Yeah.
How does it sound different? Or differently if I'm looking at that clientele versus like whoever I have right now, soccer mom, 2.5 kids, white picket fence. Yep. What's different about that?
Yep. I think, frankly, it's a lot easier to sell to an upscale patient, right? They're fast decision makers and they're very decisive people. And all this, sales psychology and this and that and the other. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying don't use any training you've got. It's important to be well trained on consults. But what I am saying is, like, it's a much more to the point conversation. It's not, some up and down and side to side. Like, you could probably sell something that might take you, say, 45 to 60 minutes to sell to a, let's say, more mass market patient. Probably sell that same thing to a high net worth patient in 15, 20 minutes. They know what they want. They probably just have a few clarifying questions they want answered. They want to know about your credentials, and off to the races they go.
And I think there's part of that too, is personality focused. I'm a high D, if you guys know what the disc is. And I make a decision in like 3.5 seconds probably. I'm like, stop talking, do this, let's go. I think oftentimes those who are more in that higher tier, that's more affluent, they've gotten there for some reason. And typically because they are more dominant personality, more aggressive, more specific in their needs and their requests. I think going into that consultation, if you are a person who is like a lamb and you're very standoffish, they're going to walk all over you, which could be okay because they're going to get what they want. But I think you have to know when you walk into the room who you're talking to and what. I'm a big thing about be brief, be brilliant, be gone. Don't linger.
We call that red in like Discovery Insights, right?
Yes, I'm red. Yes, and I've done all the Berkman, all the things, and I want you to be quick. If you know your stuff, you'll be fast. If it takes you forever to explain it, you don't know it. So I think there's part of it teaching your staff to do some of those things, like looking at personalities, looking at the psychology of the buyer, the psychology of the seller, and how those things kind of meet together. But are there any good resources you recommend that we can go find if we're trying to sort of portray that or bring that into our rooms?
I'm going to give you the same advice I like to give when it comes to branding. Get outside of our industry. Go to a high-end car dealership. How do they sell, right? If you want to go look at, some luxury real estate, what sales psychology are those real estate brokers using, right? So versus worrying, you got to go read this book or learn this sales approach, I don't necessarily subscribe to that myself. Some of my peers might differ from me, and that's totally cool. I just say, look at how it's done in the industries that are already marketing to the patients you want to serve. And again, to what you were saying, it's often a very to-the-point conversation. There's no big pitch. That's kind of just not how it goes. It's like, this is what we're up to. What's in it for you? Are you interested? Here's our next steps.
And there's a reason why celebrities look so jacked up oftentimes, because people forget how to say no. I think the other lure of this is like, if they have money to spend, I want to take all the money. And they end up looking like, Courtney Cox circa 2005 or... Beep. Really, any of these people who you look at, I think Kris Jenner is fabulous, by the way. Her work is,
so good.
Shout out to Stephen in New York. But anyway, I look at people who are celebrities who have money that come in and they're ready to spend it. And some of our medical aesthetic friends, they smell the money and they want to take it. And they will give them the bigger lips, the bigger cheeks. I think you have to also have a backbone if you serve this clientele to say,
totally.
No, I love that you want to keep going, but this is enough. Stop. And be okay with losing them if they'll end up coming back, I'm sure. But losing them if it doesn't fit your brand, because again, referrals are important. And now they're the walking billboard for your practice with those lips that walk in the room before they do.
Yep.
That shouldn't be your brand.
Yep. You don't want to be that, I call it like, Botox by Becky, where everyone looks like just not so natural, right? So to your point, one of my clients in Boston had this happen to her the other week, right? She had a very high net worth patient. She didn't know that at the time. And this client of mine is very adamant in her initial consultation, no, we're not going to do this today. We're not going to do that today. We're going to start with one thing, make sure like the results, and we'll grow together. And that patient said to her, wow, this is the first time I've ever gone to a consult where someone didn't just try and sell me everything all at once. You've got me for life. Probably in the past 6 months, that one client's referrals have made my client upwards of $200,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So tell these people no. Like, they're used to being surrounded by yes people. That's not what they want. They value honesty, perhaps more than any other segment of the market.
And they want to have a person. Like, I love being able to refer a friend. Like, I've got a person for that. It makes the referrer feel really great too, to be like, I've got a guy. I feel like it's like The Sopranos. I've got a guy for that. But they want to be the conduit for their friends to come meet whoever's amazing in their life. How do you reward that person? Because obviously money may or may not be helpful for them because they have a lot of it. How do you make that referrer feel like they're really valued and important to your practice?
I love that question. So often I get people asking me, how do we do referral programs at this end of the market? It's not about like get $50 every person you refer. Like, at this level, they don't care about that, right? At this level of patient, it's all about the experience, rolling out the red carpet, right? Maybe you do a private appreciation event for that patient and a few of their friends once a year. Maybe it's at your clinic. Maybe it's at a really high-end restaurant. Maybe it's somewhere else, right? Maybe you launch a tier of your membership that you can't even buy your way into. That's only for, your top, say, 4, 5, 6 referring patients. And it's, that access money can't buy, right? These people have the resources. That's not what really incentivizes them to refer people. They're referring people based off of the goodness of their hearts, and they want to see their friends in the hands of good people. So understand, it's not so much about the monetary incentive of that level of referral. It really is about making them feel special, doing things that help them feel an experience, and really just making them, have that VIP treatment. Maybe you send them really something fabulous around the holiday season. The sky is the limit here, right? But it's not monetary. It's all about the experience.
Yeah, there's I think it's Sephora that has some secret club you can qualify for, and you get this little.
I didn't qualify for it.
Well, me either. But I think if you spend a lot of money, you get a special little club. You get a little card. So if you go into Sephora and show that card, the whole store stops for you. It's almost like having concierge key if you're on an airline, or having the Amex Black. You call your chopper in, but it makes them feel. They've already spent a ton of money, so they have money. But it's like you just get a different level of service. You get this little box every month. Like all these little things that you get because you're that level. It isn't like a discount coupon because they're already spending whatever it is, like $50,000 a year. They don't care about the discount coupon. But it is the feeling of it, I think, that's so important to people. And memberships, you mentioned that. That's a hot topic right now, one of my favorites. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've heard both sides of the fence that they are more of they are the race to the bottom. But I've also heard that the retention, I have a very strong opinion about them, but how do you position memberships for your practices that are trying to be this affluent brand?
I love a good membership, but I don't always position it the same way. So if we're talking ultra high end of the market, what we'll probably do is it might be almost like a country club where there's an initiation fee and someone's pre-purchasing their treatment plan for the year. And that could be a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 membership fee for the year, if not higher. And then that comes with exclusive hours, and it comes with, you might be the only patient in the clinic when we see you. And, I've even seen practices where we've done it, where there's car service within a certain distance to and from their appointments. So memberships can work at all ends of the market. It's just about how you structure them. And again, I like to think like Amazon Prime, not in terms of, I'm getting the lowest price, but in terms of there's so many benefits to being a member, someone feels like, a dum-dum for not joining, right? So memberships can absolutely work at this end of the market. It's just that you might not structure them in typical, $95 a month facial club. So just keep that in mind.
Well, it's interesting. I'm a Spotify person. I love Spotify Premium.
Oh, yeah.
And I had the same experience this week. So I realized that I can get audiobooks on Spotify. Like, they're all there. Versus going to Audible, having to buy it on Amazon, push it. Like, I don't even care about the price of the book. It's like, they're all just here in my library. They never told me I'd get this for free. I never heard about it. I don't know anything about it. But the fact that I now can do this, I have not turned on Audible in 3 weeks.
Take that,
because
Audible.
It's on Spotify, and it's easier. I don't have to go through all the freaking hoops and the jumps and all the things because I'm very, very busy, got a lot going on, and it's just there. Small example, but the fact that like the price didn't matter to me. I didn't care about the benefit. I didn't care about the discount. It was like, it's just easier.
Yeah.
I feel like they heard me saying, this is too much work with Audible, and it's just on a silver platter for me. So I think it's even the small things, making it very easy, accessible, hours being different, cutting out all the fat and the hoops and the crap you got to deal with to just get what you want, having a person to text if you want to do a concierge appointment. It's just easier.
Yeah. Think people say like, why would these big tech people like Mark Zuckerberg and all that, why do they wear the same outfit every day? Because they have so many decisions to make in a day. One less thing for them to think about is one less thing for them to think about, right? And if you can be that one less thing for them to think about, which is another reason I love robust treatment plans for this market, right? Don't say what I do first and what I do second. No, it's all mapped out for them. That's something that's going to appeal to them because, again, it just is that much mental load they don't have to worry about.
Well, it's easy to say, even here today, I am really good at many things, Adam, many things. But turning a practice into an affluent luxury brand probably isn't one of them. I know that you are the best at that. So if you're a person in the chair, same thing. I'd be great at building a tech company or being Warren Buffett or being Elon Musk, whatever it is that I do, but I'm not the best at facial injectable treatments or laser devices or anything else. I'm depending on you to be as good as I am at that thing because I don't have time to learn it. Now, could I? Maybe, but I don't have the time. You better be that good and maybe feel as if you're that good because I'm giving my power away to you to do it. And I think there's some power shift there in that room that is really important to understand that they're expecting you to be as good as they are at whatever your domain happens to be. And you better show up that way, even if you're not quite there yet, kind of fake it till you make it, be that at least in the...
And price that way, too.
Yes, I think that's important.
Yeah, because so often, right, you'll see practices and they think, I'm going to lose patients by raising my prices. Well, you're probably losing upscale patients in your market right now because your price is too low. They're seeing your prices and thinking, she can't be any good. He can't be any good. That's why they price that way, right? So your pricing has a lot to do with your positioning and letting people know that, yes, I am the expert. Another thing is if you have a patient asking you for a discount, my favorite way to handle that is you got to use the right tone of voice. You're going to sound arrogant, but basically saying, I understand you're looking for a lower price. If you'd like the name of an amateur or a novice who's just getting started, I can certainly give you some names. Like, what's someone going to say to that, right? That kind of stops them in their tracks, right? But that's you being resolute in your skill set as a provider, in the services you offer as a practice, right? And someone who is not shopping on price but shopping on quality is going to respect that, and that kind of just shuts that price objection down. For a lot of, especially the ultra high net worth patients, kind of like the Warren Buffetts of the world, they just kind of want to see what they can get out of you. How low can they go? It's kind of like a game to these folks, right? Be resolute in your value. I use my Louis Vuitton example all the time. For many, many years, I think they shred them now because they're more environmentally conscious, but for many, many years, Louis Vuitton would burn their unsold merchandise, right? They'd rather see a handbag go up in smoke than go on sale. Like, that's how much they value their brand. You need to take that same approach to your skills, your technique, what you're offering to your patients, for sure.
Well, you travel internationally a lot, and when you go international, they just love to barter. Like, they don't even care where they get. It's a sport for them. When you go to
this is not a bazaar, in Marrakesh buying, shawls. I love that, but that's not what we're doing in our industry, right?
And in some countries, it's just kind of how they go to market. Like, they just love to negotiate, and they'll end at whatever price you end on. But it's the fun for them. And I think you mentioned about Warren Buffett. If you're a person who gets what you want all the time, you want to keep pushing to see where you can go. And I think there's often a respect level when you say, no, this is as low as we're going to go. This is what we're offering. That there's a moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to sit up in my chair. Like, he knows his stuff. He knows what he's going to price it as. He knows the value. I'm listening to him. And I do agree with you that when you raise your prices, you drop out people who don't fit who you want to be, and you keep those who you are. If price is the only issue, we would see the small med spas that offer these crazy discounts so full that you couldn't get in the front door. But we don't see that. We see the higher end groups really busy. We see people still go to plastic surgeons for their Botox. Why? They're charging them 3 times what they're charging at a medical aesthetic clinic down the street with a nurse practitioner doing it. If price mattered that much, it would be a completely opposite effect.
Couldn't agree more.
We just know it doesn't matter as much. It's about everything else.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of events. I was a sales rep for Galderma, and I would hear women say, oh, I go see, Leslie at Dr. Jones's office. Oh, why not come here? Well, because, Dr. Jones' office is like really good and Leslie's like so experienced. Knowing that she was paying twice as much, but Leslie sold her a great story about why she's twice as much. And the person believed it and then repeated it to a larger audience at another person's event who was offering discounts and recruited people away.
Oh, it was at someone else's event? That's wild. Oh my gosh.
Because they're like, how come you don't get Botox here? Well, because I get it there, and here's why I get it there. So she's at someone else's event saying, I remember this vividly because I thought, that's the power of someone telling the story and convincing the patient to now be the talking head for them and turn around and tell someone else about their brand.
Yep.
It's like the memorable part of the brand. How do you teach your practice staff to be the communicator of that value brand so that they go tell their patient who then tells their friend?
Yeah. So the first thing is understanding, and you just touched on it, right? Upscale patients, buy with emotion and justify with facts later. I'll give you an example from outside of our industry that will drop back. La Mer, right? This is not particularly good skincare. It's Nivea in a pretty jar. Throw some chunks of seaweed in because why the heck not? Whatever, right? But they're charging, what, $400 for a moisturizer? You go to Saks or Neiman's any weekend, that La Mer counter is buzzing, right? The Affluent, buy with emotion and justify with facts later. So if you're just hawking, injectables and lasers and surgery and all the things, there's no story there, right? Think of like your providers, everyone on your team, the milestones they've gone through to get to where they are in aesthetic medicine, and weave that into a story. We live in the age of AI. AI can help you tell some of that story. Never going to get you all the way there, but it can help, right? You need to help your staff understand that, first of all, they're telling a story. They're not just selling procedures. They're selling emotion. They're selling practices, again, ethos, where you've been, where you're going, what you're all about. And in addition to that, I don't do phone training. It's just not my thing. You've got many other experts who can come on here and talk to you about that. But in any sales conversation, whoever's asking the question is controlling the conversation. So when a patient asks, someone about price on the phone, it shouldn't just be, oh yeah, X dollars per unit for toxin. It should be, getting curious, right? Telling a bit of the story. Tell me your story. Why, are you looking for toxin? Have you gotten toxin before? Are you seeing a provider right now? That way your staff take back control of that conversation, and then they can weave into positioning the practice and telling some of that story.
I think it's like having an angle. I hate to say that word. It sounds so cheesy, but if you open up a medical aesthetic clinic, next door to someone else. Let's say you go to Austin, Dallas, any of the markets. You have to have a reason for existing. And I think to just say I do great injectables, that's not really a reason. Like, what is your story? What is your angle in the market? What is the moat you're trying to build, your competitive differentiator? If you don't have that, I think it's really hard right now to stand out because you're just a Me Too kind of brand. Mm-hmm. You've got to be something that's different. And if that story is not really compelling and you can't build a brand and marketing around it and content around it, it doesn't really stick.
Yeah. Why did you get into aesthetics? Who do you choose to serve and why do you choose to serve them? Why did you choose to open up shop in the era you chose to open up shop, right? Just by you being in business this very second listening to this, there's already a story there, and it's a story that's worth telling versus like, come get your toxin here. Like that's just not it, right? So totally.
Okay, you mentioned AI. I want to kind of dive into where you're seeing that because I do think we mentioned a lot today about having a true face-to-face connection and having real human interaction. AI is like the antithesis of that in many cases. How are you leveraging AI in practice to help be more efficient, do more things, but also not overtake the messaging and become sort of, the bot that AI can be?
Totally. So I have a few thoughts on this. So first of all, where I see AI is not meant to replace you. It's meant to help make your life easier. Where I see AI right now in the world of marketing, which is what I do, is really kind of like that junior marketing coordinator, right? Meant to kind of make those minutia type tasks faster, easier, and do them better. But what AI should and can't properly replace, or should not, and can't properly replace is your voice, your brand tone. These are all the things you have to train it on, right? So often our practice will come to me and say, well, Adam, we're trying to use ChatGPT, but it's giving me generic nonsense. I'm like, well, probably you haven't trained it very well, right? Have you written, an article about something in a journal that you can help it understand your psychology and your approach to aesthetics better with? Give it that. Do you have something that maybe a marketing agency wrote for you that's telling the story of your brand? Give it that, right? Are there other brands you admire that maybe you've, got something from their website? Or like, I like to joke, I call this swipe file, right? You see like the In-Flight magazine back in the day with like the page ripped out, like that was probably me, right? I'm looking for inspiration everywhere, right? But maybe there's like, something from a home builder that you like or something from a perfume brand that you like. Give it that, right? When people say AI sounds generic, well, that's because you haven't trained it very well, right? And again, you're getting it to try and do the wrong things if you think it's making you sound cheap and low budget. You're trying to get it to replace you instead of augment what you're doing and make it happen faster. I use the analogy of like a car. You are the engine, you are the, Rolls Royce, the Ferrari, whatever car you want to be, and AI is just your fuel designed to make things happen faster, right? Used well, trained well, I believe personally AI can do 80 to 95% of a job for you. It will never do 100% of the job for you, at least not in our lifetime perhaps. That's really what your clinical prowess and your expertise is for.
So we're big AI people here.
Love
we live, eat, sleep, breathe it. And I was actually working on something last night, a white paper about our entire payment platform system. We have a giant payment system. And I wrote a 12-page prompt. Like, I wrote all the things I wanted to know about everything we do. And then I put it into ChatGPT. I actually put it into Claude, but side note. Yeah. And it gives me, and it always says, what a brilliant, detailed explanation of all the things I do. But I know what I want it to say. And so if you don't know how to train a model, you can still, I think, be so specific in your prompt of like, what is your mind chatter that you're going through in your head? And then have chat make sense of that for you.
Yeah. Can I give you my prompting model that we like to use with our clients? FPOTC. So what is that? First of all, we start with the F, right? What is actually the format of content you want? Is it a blog post? Is it a social media caption? Is it an email, right? F is for format, right? P is for practice. Like, tell the AI tool, whatever tool you choose to use, a bit about the practice. What services do you offer? What are your points of difference? What makes it unique? Tell the AI tool a bit about your practice. O is for objective. Like, what is the actual objective of this content? Do we want people to book consults? Are we trying to build interest or buzz around a certain procedure? So O is for objective. T, in my opinion, the most important one, is for tone, right? What does your brand sound like? What are words you should use? What are words you should avoid? I like to tell any AI tool to avoid M dashes, those long dashes. Like, those are kind of one of the dead giveaways that you're using AI. So I always put that in our tone, right? So far we've got, right, format, practice type, objective, tone, and then last but not least is C, what is the call to action? Do you want people to go to a certain page on your website? Do you want people to send you a DM? Do you want people to call about a certain procedure? Give it that and then go into more specifics. Again, you'll get more detailed as you use AI more, but that to me, the FPOTC framework is a really good way to start training AI to sound more elevated and luxurious without, just saying, write me a blog post about, skin boosters. Like it's going to give you generic nonsense because you gave it generic nonsense in, right? So.
And you can ask it to tell you how to give it better, better stuff, not nonsense. But I love that you put the tone in there because I think the tone is so important. And the M dash, pardon me, it breaks my heart because I've used M dashes for 42 years.
But now we can't.
And I love to write. It's a therapeutic thing for me to do. And I'm like, why did it have to steal my style? But I think the M dash, everyone's all high on the horse with that right now, for sure. But I think what you talked about with the call to action, the tone, the consistency, what is this channel for? Like, what am I trying to accomplish with this? We use a lot of things here, like Notebook LM, for even training our own staff, making podcasts and things. I think if you're looking at training your staff, even for this exact topic, how to be more affluent, luxurious, you can make so many pieces of content by saying, reference brands like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Ritz-Carlton. Like, I think what you just said about, tell it who you want to be. Like, what are the brands that you aspire to be like or to mimic? And then tell it to do it in that tone, to do it in that same flair or flavor. There's so many ways when you are at a crossroads in your mind of like, I can't do this anymore. I'm at a standstill, writer's block. It will help you unlock that. I think that's what I use it for most here. It's like unlocking what I want to get to because I'm stuck in some dumb detail that it's getting in my way. It's a distraction. But the biggest thing I see people doing right now is whatever chat gives them, they will copy and paste it over, and it hallucinates. Right? There's a reason I write a 12-page prompt because I don't want any hallucinations. It will hallucinate. It'll make up where there is nothing to say. It will make it up.
Make it up.
So there is a part of it where you've got to be so cognizant because again, you're a medical professional, and whatever you say becomes legitimate medical advice. Someone is taking that advice and they're moving on to the next part of their life with that in their mind. If it is not accurate and not real and not true, that's a huge risk for many reasons, like legally a risk. So you got to inspect what you expect. Check your friggin' work. I can't stress that enough. Even here, I'm like, guys, don't ever trust it. Fight with it, tease it, whatever you got to do, but just don't trust whatever it spits out the first time around as being perfect. That makes me crazy.
AI, it's a great tool if you use it the right way. If you use it the wrong way, it will just make you go crazy. So I am right there with you, Tiff. I love AI, but trained properly and used the right way.
Well, you mentioned early on funnels, and we have a CRM here, so we're big lovers of funnels.
Yeah.
How much of that kind of thing are people doing when they work with this hiring clientele of the funnels, the automations, the tagging? Do we over-index on learning how to do all of that marketing automation, or over-index on the real human touch, or do we have to do kind of, to your first point, do all of it really well?
So you do have to do an extent of it really well. I would say when we're working with our clients that are at the higher end of the market, right, you use all the principles like you would in a mass market funnel, but it's simpler, right? A 12-step funnel might be a 3-step funnel, right? Someone with 18 emails might be like 4, right? These people, again, decision fatigue. They do not want to be bombarded with spam and emails. So all the principles work. You just have to adapt them. Shorter emails, fewer of them. Cadence is a little bit different, but the principles still work. I love a good marketing automation, but done the right way.
Yeah, it's the TLDR, right?
Yeah.
Too long,
well, that's
did
exactly
not
it.
read.
Absolutely.
I think that's so common for us even here. I'm like, guys, if we're building it for SEO, different story, but like also bringing in an abbreviated version of the party that people can read that actually makes some sense of things. But one of the things I do love that you do, and I know we're getting close to our hour here, is all the education that you offer. I think you are, again, a winning example of what a brand should look like. If I'm in practice, I think the talk I actually gave at Answell before yours was about zero-click marketing. Like, how do you add value? How do you nourish and nurture your patients so they want to stay with you by offering things beyond just, I think people they get involved in discounts because it's a reason to reach out to patients. Like they will invent a discount or an event to reach out. I think there's 1,000 ways to reach out that have nothing to do with the discount. So how do you help them to learn to nurture that kind of client?
Yeah, so a principle I like to talk about when it comes to nurturing is 80% sold, right? If you're doing your nurturing the right way, by the time someone comes in for that consult or that next visit, if they're an existing patient, they should be 80% of the way to deciding, this is what I want, this is the practice I want, this is the treatment I want, and your staff and yourself are just left to answer some clarifying questions. So, I know everyone says it, and it's a bit of a cliche, but it's so true. Credential the provider. Ask common questions. One thing we like to do with our clients, especially in the surgical space, is create a one-pager called 10 questions to ask, right? If you're shopping around surgical practices or you're shopping around weight loss clinics or whatever the case happens to be, give them a list of 10 questions to ask that, yes, will make them a more empowered and informed shopper. But in addition to that, they are also going to be someone who then says, oh, wow, Dr. Smith answered these way better than all the other practices. Yes. You structure the questions very strategically is what I'm trying to say. But again, we're not selling anything. We're not pitching anything. We're just doing something from a place of value and education that naturally leads them back to you. So always think education, positioning, not just like, hey, here's a new discount or hey, here's a new offer. There's a place for that used occasionally in the right way, but more than anything, get that patient sold on your practice and the rest will follow on its own.
Okay, I just love everything you just said. We just talked about this. My sales team.
There's a lot of gems of gold very quickly, friends.
Yes, yes. Write that one down. But last week we discussed this in our sales meetings of how you sell is as important as what you sell. Like how you sell to someone is so critical. And that list of 10 questions, like even for software is really hard to buy. Like unless you're a software person, it doesn't make sense. But if we can teach a client how to buy, when they go to the next demo, they're going to compare whatever that experience is to us and say, well, wait a minute, well, Adam was so helpful. He gave me this list. He helped me through it. I feel like if I were to choose Adam, I'll get that same sort of love and commitment the whole time we're in this relationship versus I went to Jane and I had the question. She was like, why am I answering these questions for you? Like, where'd you even get that? I think some part of it is like, however you treated me in the sales process.
Yeah.
I want to believe that you'll be like that forever, which, by the way, if you've been divorced, that's not the way it works. But they want to believe that you're going to be that same person the whole time. And so there's a value in like however you approach that sell, they cling to that. It's like that's who you are as a human.
Yep.
And I think you got to bring that through. And I think that those checking on you with a text message, or it can feel very personal, but sort of be an automation if you want to do more, I guess, higher reach. But yeah, I think the sales process, how you sell, is just as important, especially in the med spa world, because we're all doing the same things as what you sell. Because outcomes aren't really that different. Like being an amazing injector and being a really good injector, the level there is it's infinitesimal. It's hard to predict which one, which is which. So I don't know. I think there's part of it that's just...
And all things being equal, if you bring me a phenomenal, best in the world injector, but their patient experience is kind of so-so, not great, not bad, kind of just going through the motions. And then not maybe the best injector, but a good injector, but who has an incredible patient experience, who's going to have happier patients? It's actually going to be the decent injector with the really amazing experience versus the world's best injector with the pretty lackluster experience, right? So couldn't agree more.
Oh, that's my TED Talk right there. That is my Roman Empire, my hill I'm going to die on. You look at practices who have decent injectors and they're crazy slammed. They're so busy, and people will say, the haters, they aren't even a very good injector. How are they so busy? We have amazing injectors. We're world renowned. We're trained, whatever. I'm like, there's a reason why, because they have sold themselves really well. And as long as it is good enough, it doesn't have to be amazing. Look at surgeons, surgeons all across the country who are really, really busy are just good surgeons. They're not amazing surgeons. And those who are amazing because they don't do these things, they're not busy. And they're sitting in the corner saying, why is no one coming to my med spa or to my surgical center? Because the other person who is not quite as good as you, they have become really great at marketing and branding themselves, and to make the patient or the client feel so special and so loved that they keep getting busier, while your skill set, although it is amazing, does not translate into marketable dollars, because it's hard to tell that story if you are a dud.
I always say, we're not in the business of providing medical aesthetic treatments as much as we think we are. We're not. We're in the business of marketing medical treatments, right? And, love it or hate it, it's the reality of our industry. I call this retail medicine, right? Yes, we're in aesthetic medicine, but the way patients buy, the way we sell, the way we market, that's all straight out of the world of retail, right? So keeping that in mind, like I said, we're not in the business of providing treatments. We're in the business of marketing them, right? And in this world, the stronger marketer is usually going to win.
And we expect that if you are practicing medicine, you're going to be good.
Yeah.
I think the base level here is you should be well trained. You should have good outcomes. If I have to ask you if you have a good outcome, we've missed the boat here.
Yeah, like when I got on my plane here to Dallas, like I don't know if that was the pilot's 10,000th flight or the first one. I have no idea. All I know was they were a licensed pilot, and the company hired them to fly their plane, and I took that as good enough, right?
So yeah, you said the FAA has rules and regulations, and they complied, right?
There you go.
You have to assume that. But looking toward what's coming up next for you, I know you're just with MERS. You were overseas somewhere doing a big thing with Dubai.
That was so
guys.
Much fun.
You're always doing something somewhere. But I want to talk about what's coming up next for you, but also your website. I believe it's neverdiscount.com.
Neverdiscount.com. You've got
Go
it.
there right now. I'm telling you, it's like a treasure trove of all the things. You will not regret that time spent. Trust me, it's so good. But what is the next big thing for you? Obviously, Aesthetic Next will be with us.
I was going to say Aesthetic Next in September. That's amazing. In the device space, I speak for Sciton, and I'm doing a lot of their skin CEO events around the country this year, so that's super fun. I speak for some of the injectable companies all over the country. So I like to say, I live on a plane. Like I said, my goal more than anything is to raise standards in this industry. And if there's a soapbox I can hop on to do that, I will gladly do that.
And you're obviously very, very good because they keep booking you. So that's
all right,
Your brand is extending it out beyond just you. And I think if Adam comes to your community somewhere, ask your rep if he's there, go watch it. You will not regret that decision at all. It's very, very good. And also, I think the things that you say spark so many things in my mind. Like I just want to keep hearing you talk because I'm like, oh, I should do this, I should do that.
I should start my own podcast.
It's like I'm like a rat on cracker now. I'm like I should write down all these things. Like keep talking because there's just so much that we could do, but you make it sound very simple and very much like if I'm intentional and I do the steps I need to do to get there. It will pay off.
People think marketing or trying to access a higher caliber of patient is this impossible, gargantuan feat, and it's really not, right? It's about doing the right things at the right time, one step at a time, right? If someone just gets 1% better with their patient experience every single day, just 1 little percent better every day, in 100 days, they're going to have 100% better patient experience. Start small, start somewhere, build from there, and do it with intent, just like you said.
Love it. And remember that you're not marketing to the masses across the country. Like I think SEO is so misleading. Like you're marketing to your little community. You're marketing to a zip code.
Yeah.
Or 2 zip codes. So you can be so much more intentional and show up so much differently because you don't have to worry about all the channels and all the country and all the zip codes and you're not like Walmart. You're very much a specific little area. So I think you can have a lot of fun with it too. I think it can be very, very fun.
It's way more fun doing this than trying to market to the masses. And I'll stand on that hill till the end of time. Why? Again, you get offline, you meet people, you build relationships. It's the good old fashioned way of doing business and I love it.
Yep. Go out and see your community. Go out to other industries. I love that. We'd love to go to other events here that are not related to aesthetics at all, just to get ideas. But he's a genius. Go follow his Instagram, Adam Loves Branding, and neverdiscount.com, and look for all the places that you're going to be. Any final words for our audience before we jump off the podcast?
Get out of the middle would be advice piece number 1. I think advice piece number 2 would be, you're a competent clinician. You're a caring clinician. You deserve a thriving business with patients who can afford to pay you what you're worth. There's no better way to do that than accessing the high net worth patient. So start thinking about doing it.
Well, thank you for all your brilliance today and your insight. And again, you are like one of my most excited guests. I couldn't wait for you to get here. So glad you could join us in the flesh. But come back next week for more For the Record and more ideas about how to disrupt aesthetics and to break the status quo. So we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.